I've played through a lot of different video games over the years, and one thing I've noticed is that video game stories are filled with themes of loss. But this shouldn't be too surprising of a statement. After all, loss is a universal human experience. Suffering is a language everyone can speak. Every story needs some kind of conflict, and tragedy gives characters complexity and relatability. But last year, I played a handful of games that aimed to dig a little bit deeper than that. For the first time, I experienced the Dark Souls series, and its answer to one crucial question: when should you learn to let go? To truly understand the end of a story, you have to go back to its beginning. This is Dark Souls. Long ago, in the Age of Ancients, immortal dragons ruled a world shrouded by fog. But one day, a fire crackled in its depths, bringing disparity. The world came to understand juxtaposed concepts like life and death, or light and dark. Within the first flame, a humanoid named Gwyn found a source of great power and became the god of sunlight. Joined by other inheritors of power and the betrayer Seath, Gwyn defeated the dragons and founded the kingdom of Lordran. But eventually, Gwyn's Age of Fire was threatened by the fading of the first flame. Fearing the end of his kingdom and the world itself, Gwyn sacrificed a fragment of his own soul as kindling. The Age of Dark was delayed, but the flame was bound to dwindle eventually. Now the fire fades once again, and with the end of the world imminent, a curse emerges on the bodies of humans. The Dark Sign, a brand that reanimates its bearer upon death. Unable to truly die in the face of apocalypse, humans are doomed to slowly lose their sanity and turn into hollows, mindless beings more beast than man, who lash out and act purely on feral instinct. You are an undead, confined to an asylum cell like many others of your ilk. This is where you are fated to lose yourself and await the end of the world. But soon your fate will change. This is Oscar, a fellow undead who frees you from your cell. After getting caught by the guardian of the asylum, Oscar doesn't have long to live.
I'm done for, I'm afraid. I'll die soon, then lose my sanity.
He asks you to continue his mission, ring the bells of awakening, and fulfill the prophecy of the undead. From there you escape the asylum and begin your trek across Lordran. In ringing the bells, you wake the primordial serpent Frampt and prove yourself as the savior from Oscar's prophecy.
Chosen undead, your fate is to succeed the great Lord Gwyn, so that you may link the fire, cast away the dark, and undo the curse of the undead.
Now you must travel to the radiant capital city, Anor Londo. Obtain a vessel for powerful souls from Guinevere, daughter of Gwyn and Queen of Sunlight. Gather souls from beings of the world's distant past, and finally enter the site of the first flame to fulfill your destiny. This might sound relatively straightforward, but if you know anything about Dark Souls, you know about its reputation. This is an incredibly hard video game. You will die on your quest, over and over and over again. You will die to traps, ambushes, and bosses you could hardly imagine yourself overcoming. But the game isn't difficult without reason. It's an aspect of the storytelling. Hollowing in the Dark Souls universe is a gradual process of decay. As people are revived by the Dark Sign, they grow one step closer to losing their sanity. The curse subjects undead to cycles of death and reanimation, leaving them feeling helpless, and the state of the world around them only adds to this helplessness. Lordran is past its prime. Demons and drakes roam the kingdom's burgs. A shanty town built on the outer walls of Anor Londo is poisoned by runoff from the sewers above. An underground city lies in ruins, haunted by victims of intentional flooding. Unfortunately, hollowing is greatly accelerated for people who lack purpose or give in to their despair. If you give up, you are guaranteed to go hollow. And once hollow, you lose everything that makes you human, with no way to go back. Only then are you able to finally, truly die. In that way, hollowing is a metaphor for depression. As the player, your experience will mirror the narrative. You will die many times and grow increasingly weary. You might reach a point where progression feels impossible and may be tempted to give up. But in a metatextual sense, giving up would mean that you're content to let yourself go hollow. Despite appearances, Dark Souls secretly wants you to win. It's a difficult game, but most of the challenges are fair. There are solutions to every problem, and most deaths will be your fault. Ambushes and traps in the early game will probably catch you off guard the first time. If you come back though, you'll notice that there's always a warning sign. The game slowly conditions you to be wary and look around corners for enemies, and anytime you die, that death was still a learning experience. Vigilance and attention to detail are rewarded. Part of that is reading item descriptions, which will give you a better understanding of Lordran's history. However, you'll also find hints about enemies' weaknesses or what you should do next. The game even demands patience and attention in the way you engage with your controller. You need to be deliberate in everything you do. You can't cancel an attack or dodge in the middle of its animation. You are fully committed to any action you take. Your inputs are also cued. For example, pressing the attack button in the middle of another animation will force you to attack once it's finished. Some bosses might feel insurmountable when you first encounter them, but as you attempt the fight repeatedly, something clicks. You start to understand exactly when and how to dodge. You see attack windows you couldn't notice before. Eventually, fights in the Dark Souls games feel like a dance. Every attempt makes you stronger. Imposing obstacles lose their threat given enough time. Patience to learn from your mistakes and determination to try again are expected of you. And even if that's not enough, you are always given other means to succeed. Hundreds of intentionally placed items litter the landscape. You can summon characters or other players to assist you on your journey. When you help someone, they will often be willing to help you in return. And anytime you go your separate ways, they wish you well.
We must not let this curse overcome us.
Oh, hello. Terrific to see us both in one piece. And pray that you never go hollow.
Don't get yourself killed. Neither of us want to see you go hollow.
Goodbye then. Be safe, friend. Don't you dare go hollow.
Don't you dare go hollow. This single line of dialogue embodies the true heart of Dark Souls. It's simple and direct. If you look online, you'll find no shortage of videos and posts titled "Dark Souls saved my life," "Dark Souls helped me understand my depression." This game has an incredible ability to find people at their lowest. It gives them a chance to prove to themselves that they can persevere. You have the strength of will to overcome demons, and that's not limited to a video game. And so, Laurentius' simple statement has become a mantra in the community. No matter what happens, don't succumb to despair. Learn from your mistakes. Keep trying. And when it all seems like too much to bear, ask for help. This is the message of Dark Souls. And so, you have your purpose. Your sun, as Knight Solaire calls it. You've gathered the souls of ancient beings to show your worth. You enter the kiln of the first flame. Inside is the husk of a god. He's waited here, protecting the flame in anticipation of a successor. His broken mind filled with only the single purpose: the former god attacks. Maybe you die, but it doesn't matter. There's only one more obstacle standing in your way. Over time, the dance becomes ingrained in you, just as it had hundreds of times before. You trade blows, until eventually, you land the final blow, and only one is left standing. You kill Gwyn to take his place, sacrificing yourself and the ancient souls. The chosen undead burns, believing he saved the world and put an end to the curse. as the Age of Fire continues. Unlike the second entry in the trilogy, Dark Souls 3 acts as the direct thematic and narrative continuation and conclusion of Dark Souls. Dark Souls 3 is set in the kingdom of Lothric, a land surrounded by mounds of ash. When fire is threatened, a bell tolls, but Frampt is nowhere to be seen. Rather, the purpose of this bell is to wake the Lords of Cinder. Those who rekindled the flame in life are reanimated, and called to burn once again when the fire begins to fade. But having already made the ultimate sacrifice, the Lords refuse this fate. And so, one contingency plan is enacted. If the Lords won't take their thrones, someone will rise to pilfer the ashes from their corpses. You are an unkindled, also known as the Ashen One, an undead who has failed once already in their task to kindle the fire. Unfit to become a Lord, you are a last resort with the role of reclaiming their ashes as kindling for the flame. As you venture through Lothric, you will encounter all manner of abominations. Parasites erupt from the bodies of undead and even wyverns, violently thrashing at anything they consider a threat. Knights slowly deform into dog-like beasts, cursed by the rings they wear. Some beings aren't made of flesh at all, but ash that slowly crumbles away. Even the world itself seems sickly. Some places are oddly familiar, but something about them always feels off. Small hints pile up until you realize that Lothric is really the remnants of Lordran, and the kingdoms that have been built upon it since the chosen undead sacrifice. This is why you come across the corpses of former friends, and why some places feel so familiar to you. Darkroot Garden has become a poisoned swampland, and the Ash Lake and Demon Ruins have merged to create something else entirely. This is a dying world. The very concepts of space and time are falling apart. That was also the case in Dark Souls, but it was nothing like this. This is the full effect that prolonging the Age of Fire has had on the world. Constant offerings to the fire that should be long dead have caused its surroundings to warp. The realm of the gods is no exception to this decay, but its fall from grace began earlier than you may have realized. If you were to kill Guinevere in Dark Souls, you would realize that the Anor Londo you thought you knew hasn't existed for a long time. The Queen of Sunlight, some of the city's guardians, and even the sun itself were an illusion projected by Gwendolyn, who hides protecting his father's grave. Signs of deception were there from the beginning, for those willing to seek them out. Gwyn's greatest achievement is a lie, and so too is the prophecy and curse of the undead. After all, did you really think that your sacrifice would be more impactful than that of the god before you, who tried and failed to keep the fire lit? The truth is, Gwyn knew the fire would fade again, and so, he branded humans with the dark sign, starting with their soldiers. When the first flame weakens, the dark sign eats away at their very essence to feed what remains, even if it only means keeping embers alive for a little while longer. A person's will slowly erodes, until their soul tries and fails to escape the ring's confines, breaking their mind in the process. This is the true nature of hollowing. Gwyn's followers are the ones who created the prophecy of the chosen undead. Combined, the prophecy and curse would force the undead to keep Gwyn's legacy alive, even if he couldn't be there to see it. The curse would never be extinguished as Frampt made you believe. The dark sign always returns, just as the fire fades. This cycle continued time and time again, each iteration weakening the flame. Every ounce of suffering that the world has undergone was in service of Gwyn's ego and vanity. Now the world is frail, and the strongest kindling it can offer is the ash of what once was. As you approach the end of your journey, you'll find yourself at the steps of Lothric Castle. Here, in the orange-tinted sky, the sun becomes eclipsed. This isn't just set dressing. This visual serves a couple of very important purposes. Firstly, it's a literary allusion to Kentaro Miura's dark fantasy manga, Berserk. It is well known that Miura's story acts as the primary inspiration for many aspects of the lore and world building of Dark Souls. In Berserk, the eclipse marks the time and place of an infamous betrayal, where hundreds of people are sacrificed for the sake of a vain man's kingdom. Demons are invited into the world, and those marked by a brand become subject to a fate that they can never escape from. In some panels, the eclipse looks eerily like the eye of a cruel god, watching the suffering and carnage enacted on man from above. But in Dark Souls, this time of betrayal has long passed. Not only humanity, but the world itself was subjected to an eternity of suffering when Gwyn decided to prolong the first flame. So, the eclipse also acts as a reminder of your curse, and a call to action. It's time for the darkness to overtake the light. You'll find no better place to reflect the truth of those words than this. This is the kiln of the first flame. After placing the ashes of the lords on their thrones, you are transported to your final destination. Here, the remains of kingdoms crumble and collide. The site of the first flame is nothing but a mountain of ash. And this time around, no man or god stands between you and the flame. After all, no one was willing to take the mantle of a lord. Instead, you face a construct. The flame is so desperate to keep itself alive that it conjures a guardian from the souls of past lords. Your opponent is the soul of Cinder. The battlefield is adorned with the arms of 100 forgotten heroes. They burn for what they thought was the greater good. This is the only piece of them that remains. As you fight the soul of Cinder, it harnesses the power of former lords, a short sword, a spear, pyromancies and sorceries. Your enemy keeps you on your toes, and just when you thought you struck your opponent down for good, it harnesses the strength of one final soul. You recognize the movements of an old foe and the dance of familiar piano keys. You face the god of sunlight one last time. Now here you are, alone, atop a mound of ash at the end of time. You need to make the final decision. It's time for you to do what Gwyn couldn't. It's time for you to let go. Letting go is not the same as giving up. After all, you fought and suffered and overcame great hardship to find yourself here. Letting go is the extension of perseverance, not the antithesis. You need to acknowledge when your life doesn't resemble anything it should. Don't perpetuate your own suffering. Don't let your pain define you. Don't let your doubts control you. Stop using them as an excuse. Instead of walking the path laid out for you by someone else, carve your own. It's scary when you don't know what the future holds. You'll bleed and cry and struggle, but you need to live. Your world ended long ago, when everything stagnated and became subject to cycles. This is not giving up. This is a return to the natural order. It's time for you to invite something new. And so, you summon your right hand, the Firekeeper. As she takes the first flame in hand, it quickly fades away, and thus, the natural cycle of the world will return, from light to dark, from dark to light. Far in the future, little flames will dance to life amid the void. As light is extinguished and everything turns to dark, the world doesn't end. Instead, you hear one final voice of hope.
Ashen One, hearest thou my voice still?
I have a confession to make, and it's something I alluded to before but haven't outright said. The Dark Souls games have multiple endings, and in the case of Dark Souls 3, none of them are technically canon. You can continue the Age of Fire, but the kindling you have is weak, as is the flame. You can become the Lord of Hollows, but a proper explanation of that ending is way beyond the scope of this video. In my opinion, the Age of Dark ending is the most fitting. It's the only ending where the Ashen One makes a choice for themselves, without being manipulated by other forces. As both the player and the protagonist of the story, you have to go out of your way to find the truth and a means of breaking the cycle. My purpose in making this video was to create my love letter to the Souls series, but also to make its story digestible to a broad audience. Whether or not you've played Dark Souls, this video is made for you. And if any of this has intrigued you, I recommend that you go play the games for yourself. This was just my interpretation of the story, and I only scratched the surface of what that world has to offer. Video games have the potential to be the most unique form of storytelling by virtue of making the observer an active participant in the narrative, or in the case of Dark Souls, a meta-narrative. These games and so many others are beautiful works of art with something important to say. Dark Souls wants you to remember this: you will suffer in life, often at the hands of cruel and unjust people, but you can't let life beat you into submission. Use your pain to grow stronger. Every day, become better than you were the day before. Grow closer to those around you. Have the self-awareness to know when something brings you nothing but suffering, and be willing to let it go. Grab every trial by the horns and persevere, so when you pass on to whatever waits for us after death, you can look back, content with the fact that you lived a life you could call your own. And until that day comes, no matter what happens out there.
Be safe, friend. Don't you dare go alone.
I mean, that sounds like a
Like
good ending to
embers
me.
linked by Lord's Pass.
Bro, your hammer.